खुदा भी दो जहां का सफाक है Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into BTV World and are watching World this morning's special transmission on Jome Fizaiya. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and with me, I'm very lucky that I've been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. Assalamu alaikum once again. And a big rich tribute to all of those people of Pakistan and the armed forces of Pakistan who have made sure that they are going to present their lives in order to defend the country. Not just that, ladies and gentlemen, we take pride in all of those fellow countrymen who have made sure that they're not going to prioritize their lives, but rather the sovereignty of their motherland we call Pakistan. A very good morning to each and every one of you, and there's certainly quite a lot to learn. And without any further ado, I think what I would want is that I would want Hajra to kind of express her feelings, because every time I have heard this patriotic anthem of ours, Tum hi se hai mujahido jahan ka safaq hai, is something that I get an adrenaline rush. I always wanted to be an Air Force GDB pilot. Couldn't really do that, but certainly Allah had other plans for me. But we are super proud of our armed forces and the fellow countrymen.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. Yom Fizaiya Mubarak to you and everyone out there. Certainly, we are very, very proud of our Air Force. And back in 1965, our airs witnessed an unprecedented saga of the heroism during that 17-day war. We have witnessed some acts of bravery, valor, dexterity, whatnot. And we've seen that how our Air Force had tackled an enemy which was 5 times larger than ours, and we have established that again and again, that numerical superiority does not matter. It is the power of the faith, it is the power of determination that makes you fly high and that makes you win the wars, and we have seen that in unprecedented times. So why not we introduce our guests and kickstart a conversation, because we belong to a generation, since we do not have direct memories from 1965 war, but we keep hearing about the stories from our grandparents, from our nani, dadis, about what happened at that time, and especially all of those mythical stories about how there were bearded men and they used to catch the bombs which were dropped by the Indian Air Force on the bridges, and then they used to put those bombs into the riverine water there in order to protect the bridges and the lines of communication. And it was not just the Air Force or the armed forces that defended the country, it was the wave of, I would say, enthusiasm, of the zeal, of the patriotism, and we keep hearing about how the Lahoris went to whatever weapon they had, be it their sticks or swords or whatever they were having in their houses, they went to the Wagah border in order to protect their armed forces. This was their, I would say, a very innocent, a very innocuous sort of an jazba, or I would say zeal, that made them or forced them to defend their motherland in the first place in the act of aggression when India crossed the international border back in 1965. But the world witnessed some really unprecedented saga, especially of our air superiority, of our air ascendancy in the first place.
And Haja, I would like to mention over here that while we observe the Yom Fizaiya with patriotic zeal, this is, certainly to commemorate the dexterity, where you mentioned, and valor of the defenders of airspace of the country against Indian aggression in September 1965 war. Despite Indian surprise invasion, while displaying valor and without bothering for their lives, the pilots of the Pakistan Air Force castigated the Indian Air Force in the aerial warfare. In this regard, squadron leader M.M. Alam set new records in history of air warfare on September 7th by defending Pakistan's airspace against the aggressors and shot down 5 Indian aircraft in less than 60 seconds at Sargodha. The 1965 war saw the best of the Pakistan Air Force war fighting abilities and made history by shooting down 13 aircraft in one day only. During that war of 1965, PAF had destroyed 104 Indian aircrafts on ground and in the air. Super proud. Shukar Alhamdulillah.
That's very true. And again, like we've told it before, that in 1964, they very famously said that there were 3 A's that protected Pakistan Allah Artillery and Air Force, right? So today is Yom-e-Fizaiya, today is 7th of September. So we are going to talk about the Air Force. So without any further ado, we would like to introduce our guest who has so many feathers to his cap, and we have been really, really glad that he has graced us in our studio. He happens to be Air Marshal Saeed M. Mohammad Khan, retired. He is the ex-Vice Chief of the Air Staff. He also happens to be the ex-ambassador to Syria. He is Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military, Sitara-e-Imtiaz Military, and he's also been awarded Sitara-e-Basalat. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
The pleasure is mine.
Right.
Sir, the pleasure is all ours, and certainly, when we got to know that you will be coming over here, we couldn't really rest ourselves. We were like, okay, it will be an exciting show to kind of be with the ex-Vice Chief of the Air Staff. But sir, before we get started, I believe that it is really important for our future generations to understand how important this day is. What is the significance of the 7th of September?
The 7th of September is significant for Pakistanis because on this day we put the stamp of our ascendancy over the Indian Air Force. The 2 days of wars, the 6th September and the 7th September, saw very heavy air battle. And in these 2 days, by flying air combat missions, by flying close air support, and by destroying the Indian infantry and armor on the ground, we proved to the Indians that we are a far better force than them.
True.
And that is why we always want to commemorate 7th September. And like you said, it is also a day on which M.M. Alam Sahab, he took 5 aircraft in less than 60 seconds.
Right.
So it is a day of telling us ourselves that yes, we have a history on which we can be proud of, but this also puts additional burden on the present commanders.
True.
That they have to keep living up to the traditions which our elders set up for ourselves. And I'm so glad to tell you and all Pakistanis is that Pakistan Air Force is one force in Pakistan which has never let Pakistan down.
That's
Whether it was 1965, it was 1971, it was 1999, or it was 2019.
That's
the
true.
victors were always Pakistan Air Force.
And that's very true, and thank you so much for very brilliantly putting it out there. And research has always shown that air superiority is always a better indicator for winning the war, right? So I mentioned that Shehzad and I belong to a generation, so we haven't witnessed the war, and we always keep hearing stories about how bravery and how valiantly the soldiers defended our skies at that time. So can you recount some of the remarkable feat of the Air Force professionalism at that time, and the stories that we keep hearing, and how they came forward and defended it? Because like you mentioned, that Air Force is one of the very superior force in the subcontinent.
Victory and praise does not come easy. One has to work for it.
Obviously.
Right. And I think starting we must praise our commanders of that time. Those who had a vision of a modern Air Force, those who understood the dynamics of the environment at that time, those who assessed the enemy correctly, and then formulated an air strategy that would be successful in any given conflict. Right. So I would like to first of all praise Air Marshal Asghar Khan Sahab and Air Marshal Noor Khan, who were the commanders till that time.
And sir, very sorry for interjecting, but I've heard that that Noor Khan Sahab was flying during the war as well.
Yes.
Wow, that's like leading from the front.
Well, that's our forte. The Pakistani Air Force commanders, they are always up in the air with their own pilots. And just as a gesture, whenever on the 23rd of March there is an air pass,
And I was about to mention
fly
that.
past.
Yeah, I was about to mention that because after 7 years, when the 23rd March parade resumed,
Right.
I was there hosting. So I knew that that it's the air chief coming, and the visuals were so amazing. So leading from the front is such a benchmark which the Pakistan Air Force has set up. Do you think that when we carry these traditions ahead, that's exactly how PAF works, and that's how what their work ethic is?
Shehzad, we are designed that way.
MashaAllah.
Right. Whether we wear any rank, we are in the field. We are with our own people. And the uniqueness of the Air Force all over the world is that the fighting element comprises of officers So we are, let's say, 500 strong of pilots in the Pakistan Air Force. But these are the 500 people who are actually going to take part in any conflict that takes place.
Themselves.
Right. So first of all, coming to the question which Hajra asked, I think we must commend our senior commanders of that time, that by mid 60s, they had created a full jet air force in this region. We were the only air force which was fully jet capable, and we had the most modern inventory like F-86s, F-104s, B-57s, and the RB B-57s. Right. So they, we had a technological edge over our enemy. We were less in number, but we had a technological edge. Now the next step was to create a strategy where you know, this technological edge could be used to offset the numerical superiority of the enemy. And then I think Noor Khan Sahab deserves all the credit for having that strategy and then implementing it himself.
Wonderful.
The three major domains of air superiority, the word which you used, was, you know, are combat, air combat, then it is close air support, and in the close air support you have a part which is interdiction, where you take out the aircraft and the airfield infrastructure, and then you have then you support the army through interdicting the enemy armor and infantry.
Wow.
Wonderful.
So in all these three domains, in just 2 days, Pakistan Air Force completely you know, showed its ascendancy over the Indian Air Force.
Air supremacy.
Yeah. Let me give you 2-3 examples.
Sure.
You know, like on the 1st of September, basically 1965 war was a continuation of the run of Kutch, Kashmir incident. And that was the time when India wanted to, because they were getting a beating in Kashmir also, so they wanted to expand the conflict and give you know, bloody nose to the Pakistanis. So they wanted to expand the war. So realizing this thing, you know, our commanders in July 1965, they formed a strategy where they said that we will put our pilots, we will never let Indian Air Force gain air superiority or favorable air situation over the battlefield. So on the 1st of September, India sent 6 vampires to Kashmir.
Right.
And we sent only 2 F-86s flown by Sarfraz Rafiqi Sahab and Imtiaz Bhatti Sahab.
Right.
And those 2 aircraft shot down 4 vampires in Kashmir.
Wonderful.
On 1st of September. And this was such a big blow to India that they withdrew vampires from the conflict completely. And for the rest of the conflict, which was in September, we did not see any vampires flying.
Okay.
The second thing was destruction of airfield infrastructure and the aircraft on ground. So on 6th and 7th of September, we attacked 3 major air bases of India, which were Pathankot on 6th and Halwada and Adampur on the 7th and 6th also. And in those, we completely destroyed their Hunter fleet.
A total of 104 aircrafts were destroyed.
It's to say that it is easy to attack an airfield, it is not.
Right.
It is an airfield is an asset which is heavily defended by ground defenses as well as air defenses. And to take out that infrastructure of 3 airfields in 2 days, I think is a crowning glory for Pakistan Air Force.
Wonderful.
And then the third incident which I like to quote is that, like I said, it was a part of our air strategy at that time, that is to help our ground forces in against the invading infantry and armor. And if you remember, there is a famous story that the Indian generals were thinking of having a cup of tea in Lahore Gymkhana.
Yes.
And then we sent our 6 F-86s over them once they were in the effort of crossing the BRB canal, and we completely destroyed them. Those 6 F-86s completely destroyed the Indian infantry and
Remarkable.
armor, and their designs of conquering Pakistan and having tea at Lahore finished on that day.
Exactly. They
would
So
got it.
6th and 7th September holds special significance for the Pakistan Air Force.
Exactly.
And till today, India, I'm sure, has not come out of that, you know,
Exactly.
And
of that depression which
Yes.
was created by Pakistan Air Force.
And we
And-
certainly feel
and-
that because, you know, when we speak of, you know, India thinking of giving Pakistan a bloody nose, not just that their nefarious designs were,
Thwarted,
yeah, I
Yeah.
think at the same time they got a bloody nose too. But
And
now,
then-
sir, when we talk about 6th and 7th of September, and when we talk about Jaume-e-Fazai, our Defense and Martyrs Day, and when we speak of strategies, you know, with the changing times, we have seen that there's been, you know, a lot of changes with respect to technology, with respect to how people think, with respect to how people strategize.
True.
One, obviously, we're very proud of our Air Force that we, you know, kind of produce jets ourselves. I think that's one thing.
Indigenization, yes.
This is something which we certainly need to be proud of, because we happen to be, I think, the only Air Force in the world who do it themselves.
We were the first Air Force.
The first Air Force. So imagine that, you know, it's an accolade that we need to celebrate. But with changing times, how do you think that your commanders in the Air Force are changing strategies too? I do not want to give you the. I do not want you to say of the strategy.
The strategy is, you know, reviewed every year. The Air Board looks at all the plans, and if you know, our plans directorate thinks that certain new inductions should be done, or certain new innovations should be brought into the Air Force, we do that. And you know, our strength is that we believe in indigenization. And Pakistan Air Force, Shehzad will be very surprised to know that we send our you know, engineers to do masters and PhD every year outside, depending on to the requirement which the Air Force is supposed to have in the next 5, 10 and 15 years.
Hence maintaining that technological edge.
Technological edge, yes. But you know, technological edge can be covered up through money.
True.
Right?
true.
And with the booming Indian economy, you know, they can always buy new and far expensive aircraft in the world. Our edge will always remain our professionalism of our pilots.
True. That's
Our one pilot is equal to at least 5 Indian pilots at one time.
Alhamdulillah.
That's very wonderful. And as Thomas Jefferson says, that the tree of liberty must be with time to time be watered with the blood of the martyrs and patriots in the first place. So, sir, we've seen war on terror. We have seen that era, and we've seen that how difficult it was to win that war because there was a lot of fluidity. The more you kill the enemy, the more its power, its ideology grew. The enemy was unidentifiable. And obviously in that era, the support of the Air Force was essential in combating that. And I'm very proud to say that we are the only country that won the war on terror, and America failed in Afghanistan, which is one of the superpower in the world, I would say. So with the changing times, we have seen the conventional warfare has changed. We have seen that our state is focusing on the human security more, right? So what needs to be done when we talk about our defenses, and especially with the point of view of the Pakistan Air Force?
First of all, I think there is a need to support, you know, the Pakistan Air Force in its plans.
True.
Right? As a leadership, we have always been cognizant of our economic, you know, limitations, and that is why we have always taken a path which is least expensive. Right? So if you ask me 2 things which are most important, the first thing is that the government of Pakistan should stand rock solid, which it has always been, behind the plans of the Air Force. And the second is that the nation should be standing behind the defense forces.
And we are, sir, alhamdulillah.
Right. No country can fight a war only on the basis of its defense forces.
True.
It is the nations that go to war. We won the 1965 war simply because the whole nation was standing rock solid.
True.
I think it is again the need of the hour that we need to shed our differences. We should, yes, talk to each other, you know, go towards the better way, but as a nation, we should be proud of ourselves and we should stand together.
That's very true, and thank you so much for brilliantly putting it out there. Now, sir, another question that I would like to ask, since you have been ambassador to Syria, and we have seen that Pakistan Air Force has not performed remarkably just in our territory too. Back in the Arab-Israel war, there are lots of legends of Pakistan Air Force, and in the Damascus, there is even an avenue named after PF Avenue. It's important avenue in the remembrance or to observe how remarkably Pakistan Air Force fought the war and then they destroyed the Israeli cordon there. So, sir, can you tell us about how the Syrian people feel about the Pakistan Air Force valor and bravery at that time, please?
The Syrian people are very thankful to the Pakistan Air Force and Pakistan, I would say, for standing with them whenever they have been, in a conflict.
In a crisis, yes.
In 1973, when all the Muslim countries rallied against Israel, Pakistan also sent its pilots over there.
Yes.
At that time, and till today, Israeli Air Force in that region is considered to be the most modern and well-equipped Air Force. It was Pakistani pilots. Till that time, no Arab pilot had ever shot down a Israeli aircraft. And then it was our pilots who went over there and they shot down Israeli aircraft over there. And they did not do it with the technological superiority which we had over here. Okay. They did it with the Syrian aircraft which the Syrians had over there.
All right.
So they were flying the Syrian aircraft and they shot down the most modern aircraft of that time, the Mirages, Israeli Mirages at that time. The Syrians remember it. They are always very grateful to Pakistan, and they are even grateful today. And they always look at Pakistan as an elder brother. They always look at Pakistan as a Muslim country which is destined to lead the Muslims in the future.
Right.
And they are, and you must be very happy to know that very recently Syria has upgraded its embassy in Pakistan from a CDA to a full ambassador.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Which shows that with every passing time, they are realizing the importance of Pakistan and the relationship that we have with
And obviously, it's a brotherly relationship that we enjoy with them. But sir,
Shehzad, if I can just add one thing
sir,
with your permission.
Sure.
Right? It is not only Syria where the Pakistan Air Force has a very strong footprint.
Turkey as well.
Right? Turkey for one, UAE 2, Saudi Arabia 3, Qatar 4. You'll be very surprised to know that at this very time, the 100% of the pilots of the Iraqi Air Force are trained in Pakistan.
Exactly.
When Saddam Hussein lost the war in 1990, this Iraqi Air Force completely finished. And in 2012, they again started building up the Iraqi Air Force, and they had no pilots to fly the aircraft which were coming to them. And then they asked help from the Pakistan Air Force, and in less than 3 years, we trained 50 pilots and we sent them back. Similarly, in Kuwait, the technicians of their high-tech aircraft, which is F-18s and others, all those technicians are from the Pakistan Air Force.
Wow.
So, it is through these people that the Arab world and our Arab brothers know that one force on which they can really, depend upon is Pakistan Air Force and Pakistan as a country.
And sir, thank you so much for mentioning that, because not just that we are glad, I think that we are proud of our armed forces.
True.
In particular, since we were talking about Pakistan Air Force today, we're super proud. And it gives us goosebumps at times, for the accolades that the Pakistan Air Force has achieved. But now, sir, there's one more thing. So imagine whenever we friends talk about, driving fast cars or whatnot, because every child away in Pakistan dreams of either being in Pakistan Army, Air Force or Navy. That's something, or the sort of a childhood that I've had as well. And we would always say that it's always the driver behind the steering rather than the car itself. So what sort of training do our cadets go through, in our academies, that they become so talented, not just talented, skillful, and then they have this ability to sacrifice their lives for their motherland by not even thinking twice. What sort of values do we instill in them that they continue to serve the country no matter what? Even today, you over here means that you're serving the country, right?
And also I would like to add one different fact, that is that there is zero desertion in our forces, and if you see around a neighbor in Afghanistan, they failed to fight in the first place because they were not ready to sacrifice, right? So what brings them to serve them?
Because sir, very sorry, लेकिन जज्बाती हो गया हूँ क्योंकि ये जो पाकिस्तानियत है हम सब में, ये मुझे लगता है हमारी आर्म्ड फोर्सेस की वजह से.
True.
बिल्कुल. You know, like I said at the beginning of my talk, that things do not come automatically; they have to be brought to happen. So, Pakistan Air Force, you have highlighted two things. One is love for the country, and the other is professional competence, right? Love for the country. Pakistan Air Force is one Air Force which inducts its pilots when they are in grade 8.
Yeah.
We take them
Wonderful.
to PF College Sargodha and to PF College Lotopa, and then from there we take in our 90% of our pilot force.
Right.
And now even 90% of our officer cadre over there. That is the place where we actually instill nationalism, patriotism into the hearts and minds of the of our youngsters, and we ensure that Pakistaniyat remains the top priority in their blood. Right. The second thing is professional competence. I think the Air Force with the highest standards of training in the world, I am saying, is the Pakistan Air Force. We have courses in the Pakistan Air Force, Shehzad, which by the time you are in the mid-career, you are an air commodore or a brigadier, you are, the courses have vanished from the Air Force because of the, the attrition that takes place at various stages. There is not a single rank in the Pakistan Air Force for which a pilot does not have to professionally come up to that level.
Okay.
And academically come up to that level.
So you have to achieve it.
You have to achieve everything. And then you must have seen that movie, The Top Gun, which was
exactly.
We have the best Top Gun school in the world in Pakistan.
Wonderful.
And all our commanders of our fighting fleet, which are the squadrons, they come out of that school.
Wow.
So if you are not a graduate of that school, you cannot rise to the third, second and first position in your fighter squadron. So now over there we ensure that the thinking of the complete pilots is the same, the strategy, they understand the strategy, they understand the techniques, they understand the enemy and what strategy the air headquarters thinks should be employed in the next conflict, right? And then they practice those strategies at that school.
Subhanallah. I think that's wonderful.
And one last question before we wrap up this segment, because very quickly my producer is saying it. Sir, so there are lots of divisive ideologies nowadays we see, and we've seen that how security paradigm has shifted from the traditional one to a human security one. So one last message before we wrap up this segment on the Defense Day. How do we protect ourselves from those divisive ideologies that are flourishing on social media by the keypad warriors in the first place? How do we protect ourselves?
And the paradigm shift.
Yes.
Social media can be a blessing as well as an evil.
True.
I think it starts, if you ask me, it starts from our school and our home.
True.
The parents have to play their role and the teachers have to play their role. They have to teach the youngsters that what to see and what not to see, what to believe and what not to believe.
True.
Right? These are the discussions which we avoid at home.
True.
These are the discussions which our teachers never do.
True.
Right? So, I think we have to engage our youngsters. They are far more intelligent than the previous generation. They are far more equipped. And I think if we teach them all the right things, we can counter the social media very easily.
And thank you so much, sir, for sending out such a wonderful message in 47 different countries. With that, ladies and gentlemen, due importance needs to be given to education. That's exactly what we wanted to talk about right after a short break. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing this occasion. Thank you so much. And for everybody who's out there, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Good morning. Dr. Fida Bazai.
Yes.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were talking about how there are lots of divisive ideologies that are flourishing on social media. They are flourishing very unregulated and unfiltered amount on the social media, and how do they impact the citizens out there, the global citizens, or I would call the netizens in the first place. And there's this lot of terms coming up, for example, keypad warriors, how they are generating a narrative and how they are instilling a lot of hatred and intolerance into the young people, into the society. And I always maintain that social media for me is a very mediocre medium, because a lot of time when you see the conversations there, it's all just ill wishes, and people are not very much cognizant of the fact that they are engaging in a very uncivilized way on the social media. But how to protect ourselves, and this is one of the dimension of human security in the first place, that how to protect our people from these divisive ideologies on the social media. These are some of the questions that we would like to ponder upon, and we would like to have these answers from a very esteemed guest of ours. We are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Fida Bazai, who happens to be an educationist. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Right. Having me here in the show.
And it's wonderful to have you over here.
Wonderful to have you over here. So, Dr. Saab, we have seen obviously that people are not very well versed with the media literacy in the first place, because you see on the social media the sort of conversations that are taking place, the polarization and the fragmentation that it has induced in the society. How do we protect ourselves? Because it's unregulated, uncharted domain. Anyone can type anything.
I mean, one thing, what I personally believe, there are two ways to counter this media thing. Okay. Social media especially. Sir. It's very dangerous. It is a new phenomena. It is now emerging, and now states around the world started realizing the influence of social media.
True.
And they are now problematizing this issue, that this is becoming a new strategic security threat to a lot of issues. True. We have seen the role of social media in Arab Spring, where many countries went into anarchy, chaos, just because of the influence of social media. True. So, all those countries that were having grand strategies in order to counter the influence of any outsider, any outside influence, they developed their strategies in advance. Like the best case for that is China. In China, they don't allow any external or global influencer to influence their kids.
Or such an application to be utilized over there.
There's a firewall, a great firewall there.
But that's exactly what I wanted to ask. Since you've mentioned, and while we're talking about the threats of it and how we prepare and how we strategize, I think even that's wrong. So imagine that, that people certainly do not, because everybody has the same right? So may you be in China, may you be in Pakistan, may you be in US, you certainly have the right to use whatever you want to use, right? So what we need to do is that we need to educate our audiences.
But with responsibility.
Exactly. This is where I'm saying that we have to educate our audiences to make sure that they take the right use of it. Because what happens is that, if you're going to have that firewall around, that means certainly you're cut off with the rest of the world. You have no idea what's happening in the rest of the world, and you're blindfolded, and then you can be a part of a narrative which certainly isn't global.
Shahzad, it is very important to understand one thing, like knowledge is not neutral.
Yeah,
knowledge, there is somebody behind knowledge all the time.
Knowledge
and they are always using it for different purposes. And at the beginning, there was a thought that knowledge, whatever knowledge is coming, it is good. But with the passage of time, we realized they think, no, some knowledge are good, some knowledge are bad.
True.
Some knowledge are it is at various stage. You cannot give unlimited access to your kids or children who do not have good understanding of the world yet. True. To give them to influence, to give them access to social media in a way where they would be influenced by anybody from anywhere.
That's
so
true.
It is a very dangerous thing. Like we cannot give our child, it is just like letting your child to be with a teacher who do not know anything. Like teacher is the biggest influencer.
True.
So in the new world, that role is being influenced, that role is being changed to social media.
So the parental role needs to be there. I truly agree to that. So what you've mentioned by far, I truly agree to that.
True.
But now we are like, okay, so since we do know and we do realize that, it carries a potential threat.
True.
How do we train our younger generations to know that, that what is the utility of this social media platforms and how it needs to be used and how you do not have to be a part of anybody's narrative? These are the things which everybody needs to have an understanding of. Now, because what happens is, okay, there's this argument going on, there's this hashtag trending, and everybody becomes a part of it because everybody wants their tweet to be on trending, right?
And do you believe that in the coming days we will develop filters to use the social media in the first place that will allow some knowledge to pass and some to not permeate in the first place?
I mean, there are two ways in order to counter this threat. When he is to develop various kind of filter and ban on various websites that are operating from outside. The other is to develop a strength of character among your students through education. What I have seen, like in UK and US, what they are doing, they are projecting their enemy in a way that then their students or youth do not like to watch their movies, do not like to go to their website.
Yeah.
So it is all about it is embedded in their education system. When you are graduate from their institute, you already start realizing Russia as enemy, China as enemy. This is what has been, they unconsciously put it in your subconscious that they are your enemy, nothing positive will come from these countries, so anything coming from there should be suspected.
So they always have, so it means that they have the same stagnant strategy, and the reason being, so imagine that any film which is going to come out from our neighboring country would certainly speak of Pakistan in a very different manner, which certainly we are not going to like. Likewise, I believe that Pakistan has always had a great policy where we certainly haven't targeted anybody, but rather we had multiple options to understand, okay, who's good for us and who's bad for us. So this way we have had arguments, this way we have had conversations, this way we have attended lectures where it was our decision to decide, okay, you think who is the bad guy over here and who is the good guy. I think this is the strategy with which we need to move forward so that we are not blindfolded and that we feel as if that, that we are on top of our education, because education is not just studying, rather your personality, your traits, characteristics, your education, what you studied and how much you have traveled.
That is very important, like there is no alternative travel, but it is very expensive. No,
That's true,
everybody
that's
cannot
true.
travel everywhere
That's
abroad.
true, that's true.
So for that we have to give some
expensive
time.
these days, yes.
We have to give something to our children. They cannot travel.
True.
So then the best mean is our own institutions. So in institution, our own curriculum, our own system, our own society. That is what we can do. One thing more, Bollywood is playing the same role regarding Pakistan as Hollywood has been playing regarding Russia.
True.
So it is all about, and
और
they
वही
Also
सोशल
very
मीडिया पे चलाते हैं, वही सब चीजें
propaganda
फिर वायरल
machine,
करते हैं.
yes, yes.
Yeah, we get that.
Yes, it is always a very social propaganda machine. Hollywood has been a very sophisticated propaganda machine because you will see Marvel series and DCs that are super hit films that how their forces are protecting the entire globe.
And most of the
out
time
there.
they land in Russia as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's what I don't
yes,
get.
and the enemy keeps changing, depends upon their foreign policy. But sir, now coming to you, and let's talk about the human security paradigm of it. We have talked about it, how our state has shifted the traditional security paradigm to a more human security where they are investing on the people as a whole, right? And it is the need of the hour. So what are the essential components, and how do you think we can protect ourselves or invest on our human resources in order to make sure that we are talking about more prosperous Pakistan?
I mean, in 21st century, still traditional security is a threat. We see that
that's true.
there are states who are still in war with each other. We just saw what is happening in Ukraine. But now what is becoming more and more important, it is human security. So humans have to be protected, promoted, and in a way should be
Invested.
developed,
Yes.
invested.
True.
So they become a source for you rather than a burden.
A burden.
True.
So
A
this is
liability.
in our, especially in our context where population is booming, where we must be investing in, we must be seriously thinking about our human security. It is becoming an issue, so we must not ignore
And
human
education is
security.
one of the component. And since you are an educationist, where do you see the gaps in filling that paradigm in the first
And
place?
if you agree to what Haja has said, that it happens to be one of the component, what are the other components?
I mean, one is education is definitely the two questions. In education, the biggest problem, our biggest problem is quality. It is not just education.
True.
We have a lot of people with degrees but they could not defend their degrees.
True.
What we need now is a graduate far greater than their degrees. When we reach that stage where our graduates are greater than their degrees rather than their degrees greater than them, then we could say that yes, it is quality education that we are having, and that would be the answer of your so many problems.
True.
So quality education must become priority, which ultimately ensure your human security as well.
Thank you so much, sir, for alluding to that. I think it's a wonderful point that you've made. But I'm going to bring the conversation somewhere down the order, where, you know, for any ordinary human, because what we used to hear whenever, you know, our mother or father would go for a rishta, you know, they would be like, ladka kitna pada hua hai aur ladki kitni padi hui. That's a very common question over here in our every household. So no matter if the guy's done masters, the girl is a doctor or an engineer or whatnot, what happens is they eventually end up fighting. You know, I'm very sorry for that. So, you know, when we bring the education element in it, that okay, you know, when the mother or the father or the parents went and they're like, ladka kitna pada hua hai, and you know, how much has the girl studied? Why do you think that we still come down to the very basics of that relationship? कि लड़ाई तो करनी करनी है. So education तो ऐसे लगता है जैसे हमने सोचा ही नहीं था उसके बारे में.
I mean, then
very
at that level it's fine, but when it comes to market where you are looking for job, then
No,
they
that's
will
why.
not-
That's we understand. We understand. I'm talking about relationships, and you know, it's not just the husband-wife relationship. It's the boss-employee relationship. Wherever you may go, you know, it's the consumer and the seller relationship. You know, the buyer-seller relationship. So, with all of these relationships, we do see a lot of problems emerging. And if only education was the solution, that means that we're not on the right track because we're still fighting, arguing, and whatnot. What other components are there to make sure that we turn out to be more charismatic, that we turn out to be less argumentative, that we turn out to be more humble and great humans? Because there's a reason why I say so. There's no noble man, only noble intent.
And be a responsible citizen in the first
Yes.
place, right? Go ahead.
I mean, one thing, this is something, a cultural shift that we need.
Okay.
That culture we have to bring, again, everything goes back to education. I mean, your graduate, what we have seen abroad, like if a graduate or a university student is living in a place, that student is considered the safest place anywhere in the West. But in our country, unfortunately, students are not that responsible.
Okay.
What we need to inculcate this idea in our students that they are the flag bearer of modern noble human values. When they become the flag bearer of modern noble social values, then they will become the agent of change. That is how change started coming in our
With
society.
so much of societal pressure, peer pressure, you know, for a student to kind of go and chase that, okay, whether I'll be able to pay my semester fee or not, how do we expect them to be the flag bearer of that, you know, noble value?
I mean, still you have to
There's
do
so
that
much on the
thing.
plate.
That is coming, like it is
That should
coming.
never be a hindrance in
Yeah.
the first place. Go
That
ahead.
should not be hindrance. Like your behavior should not be an hindrance. Being good does not mean you cannot be good in.
Thank you so much for
in
saying that. I
troubles.
seriously wanted to
Yes.
hear it from you, hence the question. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I think we're going to reiterate again. No matter what happens, you know, the simplest rules in life, no matter, you know, what status level you have in your life, what you enjoy. Number one, you obviously have to be thankful to Allah Almighty. And number two, you know, your words, your actions shouldn't really dictate the kind of walk of life you come from. You know, if you have a noble intent, only then you can be a noble person, because there is no noble person, there's only noble intent. So thank you so much, Dr. Saab,
Thank you so
Thank
for
much.
you
being
for
with us.
having
Lovely
me.
to be
Thank
in
you so much.
conversation with you, and thank you so much for bringing us to that point and our audiences to that point, which we've always been reiterating. So it's wonderful to be in conversation with a like-minded person who happens to be very educated, not just in one facet, but I think that you check box ticks kind of all of them, you know. So may it be the personality, may it be the vision, may it be the morals, may it be the ethos. I think everything is checked 100%. Thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
Thank you so much once again, Dr. Saab, for being here. And with that, we would like to wrap up our segment and say Allah Hafiz to you. So until next time, it's a goodbye and good
Good morning.
morning.